And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off.
It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What do you think?
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
Nothing to be igniting the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.
Welcome everybody to another edition of Countdown to Launch. This is the Wednesday, November 13th edition as we get ready for Flight 6 of Starship. I am Sawyer Rosenstein and I will be your host today along with my co-host Jake. So, say hi Jake. But yes, this is where we go over all of the daily updates as we get one step closer to Flight 6 of Starship, which is currently scheduled for no earlier than Monday the 18th. I, of course, am not alone, and honestly, Jake doesn't give the best commentary, but I have two people with me who do give some of the best commentary, including Ryan Caton. Ryan, how's it going?
Hello Sawyer, how is everybody? We just on the clock there ticked under 122 hours to go until the window opens on Monday, so it's getting real again. Getting a bit of deja vu from Flight 5. It wasn't that long ago, but excited to see them do another test flight at a normal, wonderful time of day. No, wonderful time of day. I can't wait.
What are these normal human hours that SpaceX is trying to do here? It's weird. It's not 3 a.m.
Yeah.
or 7 a.m. And then also joining me today is Alex. How's it going, Alex?
Well, it's been quite an interesting week so far, right? Because we have had Ship 31 rolling out. I'm doing quite weirdly, good, because it seems like things are going on schedule. Maybe later today we're gonna have Booster 13 going out to the pad as well. So hopefully we get a full stack later this week. We'll see.
We will see. And speaking of we will see, I like the glasses today, so we know we're getting the real smart Alex answers.
Yeah, it's getting late a little bit, and so my eyes are a little bit more tired. I need the glasses.
And as we can also see, in actuality, there is Booster 13, which we expect to roll out in one of a couple windows. There's one from 12 to 3 p.m., and then there's one from 12 to 3 a.m. So that should be heading out to the launch pad very, very soon, where Ship 31 is already out there and waiting. In terms of what we have new leading into today, there is some fun regulatory paperwork that came in. We now have a NOTMAR and road closures in place, so a lot of excitement coming in here. So I do want to start with that. So Alex, has there been any major info that came out finally with the NOTMAR, and also what do we still need?
Not really. It's just essentially the usual thing as normal. There are multiple airspace areas that need to be cleared, of course. So we'll have many different NOTAMs, and also as well marine zones, NOTMARs and everything. So that's pretty par for the course for the entire waiting time until the launch. We're going to see multiple of those. We have also had the road closure for the flight, so it's going to begin at 8 a.m. Remember, this time around the launch is not in the morning, right after sunrise. It is in the afternoon, so that would be a 30-minute launch window that begins at 4 p.m. Central. That road closure will start at 8 a.m. So we'll have potentially the opportunity to at least see the full stack at sunrise, right, for the last time, and then have the launch in the afternoon. But definitely, very interesting. These are the usual process of just getting everything lined up together, all of the closures for the air, all of the closures for the sea, and now as well for the road, because the road is one of the places that they also need to control to get people out to the launch site. Actually, to not get people to the launch site while launch operations are ongoing. Yeah, I guess it's the other way around, to not get people to the beach and the launch site. But it's true. It's how it goes. And so, yeah, just more of the same. Nothing, no surprises here as well. Like the areas are pretty much the same as the previous 3 flights. Remember from flight 3, they have been doing splashdowns in the Indian Ocean, and so far it's still in the Indian Ocean. There's no surprise area in the Pacific or anything like, ooh, somehow it's landing on another place. No, it's the same location. It's same old same. Of course, the difference here is that there's going to be a relight test on the upper stage. There's a bunch of other things as well going on. We'll definitely be able to talk about all of those as we lead up to that launch next Monday. As you can see there, that's the sort of status readiness kind of thing that we have on the NASASpaceflight website, and so you can check that out. Pretty much everything checked off. I should say maybe the last one, I believe there was a NOTAM last week, maybe towards the end of the week, for the US area. Might be misremembering, but essentially, those things are going to be coming up every now and then. I don't know why, but there should be probably another one saying flight termination system installed or something, because that's one of the other things that we're going to see potentially in the next few days, because we are waiting for booster 13 to roll out to the pad. Once it gets to the pad, ship 31 is already waiting there for that booster, and then we should see that installation of the flight termination system and full stack operations. We don't know if they're going to be doing some kind of test of the full stack first before going with the flight termination system, or if they're going to be installing the flight termination system, then stack and leave it like that until launch. But we'll definitely see that over the next few days. That's the whole bit. As usual, an Alex answer.
Well, I was going to say, if you have any questions, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight, and we'll do our best to answer as many of them as we can. But I think that just answered most of them.
Well, no, if people keep having some, if they need a bit more of detail on some of these things, of course, they should keep asking at NASASpaceflight in chat, and definitely go ahead and do that.
Yeah, that is true. And then we can always annoy Mr. Kevin Michael Reed in the background, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, trying to get anything we need pulled up on screen to go for the 5-minute long Alex answers. Which, hi, Kevin. Let's start off then with some of those questions. And I think the big thing right now we have is the fact that we have Booster 13 set to roll out next. You see there, we have ship 31 out there. Ryan, when B-13 rollout?
That's a good question. There's the couple windows we were talking about. It's currently just gone past 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Starbase. So that window is the end of that window is rapidly approaching for the afternoon of 13. However, precedented SpaceX to roll things out, and they don't have for that specific time. So say if SpaceX decided to roll this booster out of the bay in 15 minutes time, only reach Highway 4 at, say, 55 minutes past the top of the hour, then I don't think the police are really going to stop them from moving the booster down Highway 4. But if they don't roll out this afternoon, then there is another window scheduled for the early hours of the morning, as we were just talking about. So it's got its hot stage ring on the top there. It looks like it might now starting to be disconnected from the bridge cranes in the in the mega bay there, which is what SpaceX uses to hoist up the vehicles inside of the mega bays. So The next key thing I think is really going to be looking at the grid fins, because typically SpaceX rotates those grid fins about 45 degrees. You might have seen during the last booster rollout, and that just, I think it just makes it easier for them to make sure they accidentally hit the grid fins whilst they try and move it out of that big doorway there, because even though the boost fit through the doorway quite fast, you have the grid fins sticking out on the side. Really isn't. It's a very, very tight fit.
Yeah, it's definitely a tight squeeze, and apologies there for what a Delta pilot would call a light chop during that, but now we should be able to hear Ryan just fine. Which, while we have that fantastic view up, taking a look at the top of the bay and being able to see the hot stage ring, here's a question from Bram Alex saying, why is the hot stage ring separated and not just left connected to the top of the booster during flight?
Yeah, so at least from what we have heard from SpaceX, of course, is that they just ejected and jettisoned that to be able to reduce the mass for the landing burn. Of course, we don't know the full details because I'm a bit skeptical that that's the only reason, to be fair, and usually there's a few more things going on there. There's this theory that it might even affect the aerodynamics because, you know, it's behind the grid fins, and believe it or not, that's kind of, you know, quite important for the grid fins to be able to get a grip on the aerodynamics as it re-enters. Just to put an example, for Falcon 9, when it is with an intrastage, right, when it is just the single stick variant, it can fly pretty much well, but for the side boosters of Falcon Heavy, because it has the different profile behind the grid fins, they needed the new version. Well, the new version, the ones that they use right now are not the ones that they were using initially. They needed that new design, not just because they are made of titanium and that means they can resist the re-entry better, but also they had a different shape, and that different shape allowed them to be able to have a better control aerodynamically. So that's one of the changes that it's going to happen when they move to the next version of the booster. It, at least from the graphics, from the renders that SpaceX has shared, it's going to have a different profile, a different structure and to it. So maybe that allows the booster to be able to be different in that sense. The grid fins are also changing as well for version 2. So maybe all of that will solve. And also for that version as well, the mass issue will already be baked into the design. They'll have already that in mind when they build that. Of course, we have not seen any of that hardware yet, though.
Yeah, that is what we're still waiting to see. And again, it seems like also the fact that this was kind of a late addition, so to speak, a couple flights ago when they decided, yeah, now we're going to do a hot stage ring. So to have the boosters already there and then just attach a hot stage ring and go, yeah, we don't need it anymore. We did all of our landing tests without it, so let's just go without it at that point in flight. Let's see here. Take a couple more questions of yours. Here's an interesting one from, I believe it's Jan. We're talking about, obviously, we got the booster there. We've seen Ship 31. One of the biggest things that we've noticed with Ship 31 is in terms of the tiles. A lot of those tiles are missing, which we believe be related to potential testing to see, hey, we can go without tiles at this spot to be able to catch it down the line. They're wondering, how do you think future ship catching hardware will look like if the tileless areas fail? So what would be the potential catching mechanisms if there is tiles and if there isn't tiles for a Ship 31? Ryan, shall we test your internet and see?
This is all just kind of a stab in the dark, really, at the moment, because we don't know what the future holds. I mean, it sounds like I'm stating the obvious, but assuming that Ship 31 can survive with these, huge chunks of tiles removed, then maybe they'll be able to do some sort of simple door and like some sort of flip-out pin system. So instead of having the pins, like or maybe even like on the space shuttle, they had the landing gear to be like a landing gear or something like that. We'll just have to wait and see what they decide to do.
We will have to wait and see, and also we need more Starlink launches so that there's less handover time and less jumping between your comms.
Yeah,
there.
I was gonna say we'll probably need Starship to start, launching the big Starlinks. One of the things that I've always, been wondering is right now you can see actually in that shot, and please don't move away from that one. You can see there on the side, so you see the flap there. Right below the flap, there's like a little gap there. That is where, oh my goodness. There we go. You did that on purpose, Kevin. You can see there's like a little hole there. So the chopsticks, in order to lift the ship, there's like 2 pins that stick out, that deploy. And then each one of them, there's another of those on the other side. And then it goes onto that little hole there. It's small, but trust me, it's huge compared to human size. It's just small compared to Starship, because the Starship is huge. But yeah, and so that's the way that they lift the vehicle. Of course, there's no way for them to be able to catch a ship in, like try to line up the arms, if you can imagine something like what they do with the booster, where it closes, it slaps, and then they like, there will be no way for that to happen. Like the pins will just scratch the side of the ship, right? And also when they slap, if there were tiles in there, they will also be scratched and everything. So that's one of the reasons you can think of for why to remove all of the tiles on the sides, because the way that they probably need to catch the ship is just going to be pretty much like the booster, but you don't want to damage tiles. And so if you can get rid of the tiles on the sides, then you can slap the ship, and then you have something fixed on the ship, just like on the booster, that just lands on the landing rails, right? You probably don't want something that is deployable on Starship, because every single piece, every single kilogram that you put, or single pound, whatever unit that you use, it's a one-to-one relationship with a payload. And so whatever you use, probably better if it is fixed in place. And so the way that I can think about it, perhaps, could be some kind of, lifting points, pretty much like what they have with the booster, but maybe they are protected, like with its own sort of, aero cover, little aero cover. And so by not having movable joints and everything, it's fixed in place, you can probably have that and be able to land on the chopsticks. Another great way for that to be improved in the future is that they can use that as well as the lifting points. And as we've seen already on the first Block 2 vehicles, the lifting points are lowered down on the vehicle, so they are going to be more closer to those strip of tiles that they have removed, right? It's not going to be right below the flap. So it's going to be a lot better in that sense. They could probably replace those little holes for little knobs that are just there, static and in place without any movable things. That's my theory as to how it'll be. I have no insights. I have no idea how it'll go, but I'm just thinking, copy what works best, and that is the booster. The booster has those fixed points. They land on the chopsticks. They essentially, slap on the vehicle, and then those things just come down and land on the rails. And that seems to me, at the very least, what probably makes more sense. And without those rows of tiles you can see there, then they're gonna be able to do all of that in the future. But we'll see if it actually survives. For some reason, we're now showing 39A. Maybe Kevin was not pressing the right button. But yeah, that's my theory. We'll see. It's gonna be fun figuring it out. That's one of the things that I like about this program, which is like we all have different theories, and it's always cool to explore what kind of decisions they're gonna be making. And most of the time we are wrong, right? Because it's sometimes SpaceX just comes from the side and they're like, no, we're gonna do this other thing. But we'll see. It's gonna be fun. I like it.
So do you think that maybe like 14.1 we could see some ship slap testing?
Ooh, that would be fun. Yeah. I will not be opposed to that. Yeah, that would be really, really fun.
Yep, just SpaceX slapping their stuff around. Let's see here. Take some more questions. There's one that I saw while we're still talking about the ship in terms of the in-flight firing. So once they're in the space environment, the plan to do the single engine burn. Dakota wants to know, how come only one Raptor will be attempting relight? Is it suspected they'll work up to more engines relighting in space over time, or is the one Raptor fully enough to deorbit? Ryan, shall we give it a try? What do you think?
They don't need all the Raptors. They just need one. Raptor is very powerful. Ship might be big, but there is. I'm not going to say there's no drag, because, you know, the ISS has to reboost. There is some drag. There's a teeny amount of drag, negligible drag. With this answer, drag doesn't matter. They only need one engine. There isn't really any drag. So Starship might be big, but Raptor is quite powerful, so they just need the one.
And while we're... Oh, go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to add a little thing here, that you normally don't need a lot of, energy to the orbit. Like, you just need a very short burn. I did once the calculation. You only need like 5 seconds on one Raptor engine, and you're already deorbited. Like, at least for an orbit like 300 kilometers or something like that.
Now, in terms of the booster's engines, though, the Ace Raichu wants to know, during the ship's landing burn, talking about the ship still, during the ship's landing burn, does it have enough engines at the end to precisely maneuver like Super Heavy? So when they do go for that catch, we obviously just need that single engine in space for the deorbit, but for a landing burn, how many do they need, Alex?
Well, the landing burn on the ship, as we've already seen, we saw that on the suborbital campaign, right? Remember back in the day, 2020, 2021? At the beginning, they started only igniting 2 of the engines and landing with those 2. Then they decided to have all 3 for better redundancy, and then you down select to 1. And then on SM-15, which was the one that actually worked, what happened is that one of the engines had shut down early during ascent, and so they only had 2 working engines for the landing burn, and so those 2 engines were the ones that were used for that landing burn. For flights 4 and 5, which were the ones that attempted a splashdown in the Indian Ocean, we don't know fully how many, right? Because the GUI for the engines did not work for that. But we assume it was 3 because of the flashes. We could see 1, 2, 3 flashes, the 3 engines igniting, and then probably down selecting to maybe 1 or 2 from that. And so that's how they do it. It will just be essentially the same as when the booster comes down and it ignites all 13 engines and then it down selects to 3, right? I will assume that perhaps if for whatever reason something like what SM-15 happened, right? Remember that one of the engines failed during ascent, and so they only landed on 2. For the booster, I can imagine that something similar will happen, that they could down select to the best 3 engines or something like that if one of the innermost engines. Anyways, I'm going off the rails here, but what I'm trying to get to is that yes, it should be able to. We saw the controls on the on SM-15, on flight 4 and flight 5. Flight 4, it did not come on target because of the damaged flap, but on flight 5 it did. We saw the buoys footage on live and also on the recap video from SpaceX, so it definitely has the precise maneuvering. It can roll and do all the things. There you go.
Oh, right as timer hit 0. Very good. Also, Christian just wants to clarify, is the in-space burn for deorbiting the ship, or just to test that capability in order to do so once they do begin orbital missions, Ryan?
So this is a test on this mission, but it's a crucial test. They need this technology because, whenever China, say, launches the Chang'e 5 and they leave that core stage in an uncontrolled orbit, everyone complains, so it's only equal that if SpaceX left a nearly 50-meter tall, 9-meter diameter massive steel tube just floating around uncontrollably in space, people will complain. So they need to be able to prove they can deorbit before they have to deorbit. So this isn't mission critical for this mission, but it is mission critical for all the missions coming up in the future.
Yeah. And that core stage is like 20 tons. Starship is a lot heavier than 20 tons.
Yeah, just a little heavy.
We're being told in the back channel that we should probably talk about what we're seeing here on screen, which is one of the pieces for the big yellow crane that they have put there. It has a weird name. I'm not gonna be. It's CC8800-1. It's like some weird name, but yeah, it's they've dismantled that. They're still trucking out all of those parts. That's one of them. There are probably many more still yet to be trucked out. Seems like they might not need that for now, or they're probably good enough with the LR 11,000. I have no idea, to be fair.
When you say it all, it sounds
11,000
like a Star Wars character. Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying, Ryan?
But yeah.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, I'm hearing things. But yeah, no, to me it sounded like you've got C-3PO, BB-8, and now that crane. I do want to thank a couple people here. Stuart, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. RC Horseman, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Shiloh, with a very important message. Did you know they caught a booster? They caught a booster! Tom Jansen, thank you for upgrading to Launch Director, one of the highest levels of support here at NSF. Thank you so much for the generosity with that. We really appreciate it, and keep an eye out for your name at the end of these shows now. Ethereal Swordsman wants a sword sound effect, by the way. Maybe we can work that out for Flame Trench. Also, why do they call it an oven when they oven it in the cold food and
Who's that?
out of the hot food?
Oh, okay. I thought it was another person, but I know that meme. Oh, Garfield.
I'm just gonna keep moving on.
Ooh, you don't get that. Oh, hang on. Am I the only one that gets that that reference? Yeah, it wasn't you, Moldy.
Probably.
Yeah. I do. Anyways, go ahead. Continue with the support.
Magnum, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. George, no message, but thank you still for the support. Here's a good question from Doug Ramsey. When Booster V2 begins stacking with the hot staging ring incorporated, won't the high bay doors be too low? Is that an issue, Alex?
Well...
Or Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan. Or okay, me. So... V2 of the booster is actually not that taller. Is only, if I remember correctly, so there are the long rings, which are, or normal rings, which are 6 feet tall, and then there's the short rings, which are 4.5 feet tall. I believe it's 4.5, maybe 4. Bottom line is, those short rings, that's about as much as they're getting of extra height on the version 2 of the booster, so it can still fit through the door. The problem will be V3, which is many more rings than just a short ring. It's like 5, 6, 7 rings extra height on the booster, and many more as well on the ship. So yeah, they're gonna need a new bay, but that'll be for V3. V2 can still be built on these bays.
Maybe V3 that ends up at the Cape and they start building there with the giant Roberts Road expansion plans. Maybe. I can hope, okay? I'm a part of the Cape team. I can hope the Cape gets more Starship stuff. Paul wondering if there's any good Mexican access to see the launches. I'm sure there's some good viewing sites on the other side of the Rio Grande.
Yeah, I will recommend at the very least to know Spanish before you do that, though. But there's a good community. I know some of them, of course, because Spanish and everything. I know a bunch of people that do go out there from the Mexican side. There's a good community of people that really they are all in contact together. So I recommend that if you know Spanish, definitely get advice from them, because I have no idea, but I know they actually coordinate to go out there and watch those launches from there.
There's been some cool YouTube videos from the Mexican side of the border of the launches and landing.
Yep.
Here's one from Jimmy J, and I know this is kind of speculative still, Ryan, but do we know yet if the OLM for Pad B will be fixed or mobile?
I've seen some heated discussions, let's say, about this on the internet. The truth is, we won't know until we know. So I might just leave it with a shrug emoji, to be honest, because I don't really want to get on either side of that heated debate. I wouldn't be surprised either way. It's a 50-50 for me at the moment. What we do know, it's big and it looks quite heavy, so...
Hey, that's what my doctor said about me at my last visit. Anyway.
This is not a flame change.
No, it is not. You're right.
Speaking of flame change, there will be one on the second pad. Bam.
Hey, there you go. Way to bring it back to some sanity. Oh, boy. Also one from George saying this might be a dumb question. I actually don't think it is. And I'm not sure if either of you know the... I'm not sure if either of you know the answer to this, though.
Okay, go ahead.
How is SpaceX able to fish the hot stage ring out of the ocean? Does it not sink to the bottom?
They have divers. Ryan,
Yeah.
you probably edited the video, right? The SBU that we did about it. Go ahead.
It's not that far away, and the sea at that point, the Gulf, isn't that deep. So it's not that far to go down. And they have a big crane on the back of the boat. So, you know, big crane, not that deep. It's not that far to fish down. And, you know, if we were graciously given a video of the splashdown location, I'm sure SpaceX had more enhanced views, shall we say, of the hot stage ring splashdown. So maybe they do, maybe they don't. But, you know, they obviously knew where it was. And it's not that deep. So it's not that difficult of a fish.
Yeah, probably easier to catch than some of the fish out there in the Rio Grande.
Speaking of that, I don't know if you've seen the... I don't know if you've seen the poll that Crispy just put in chat.
I'm trying not to pronounce it because I don't speak Spanish, I speak French. So, can you translate what that is for us, please, Alex?
It's the two choices. So it's asking, send Alex to Mexico for a Starship launch, and the two options are yes or no way. I voted no way. Just for the
I
record.
voted yes.
How do you know? You don't know Spanish.
You just read them out.
True. But yeah, I don't have any plans to go to. I mean, maybe in the far future, if I have a lot of money and a lot of time, I could. But I don't have any plans anytime soon.
Well, what we will hopefully see sometime soon, though, of course, is this upcoming flight. And what we really hope for is getting into that realm of V2, which Samuel is wondering, Ryan, do you think they'll need a new license for V2, even though it is still
100%.
somewhat similar to V1?
100%. You know, we see the Flight 4 and 5, they included the return of the booster, right? They'd already proved they could do a soft splashdown, and that's just a trajectory change for the booster. They are changing the entire vehicle with V2. It's brand new stuff on the ship, brand new trajectories. You know, this is going to be going to orbit. 100% they will need a brand new license from the FAA. Luckily, hopefully the license and hardware can kind of marry up a bit better this time around, because we're not expecting Ship 33 to fly for a few months yet, because they've still got to do a lot of testing with this ship. You know, they've only just put the Raptors on it. It's going to be a little while before they take it to Massey's to static fire, and they're going to probably want to do very deep testing with that ship because it's brand new. The whole thing's new. It's a brand new type of vehicle.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of changes that we expect to see for that next generation, shall we say, of Starship. Whether you want to call it V2, Block 2, Starship 2, Electric Boogaloo 2.
Volume 2. I'm going to call it Starship Volume 2. Everyone can agree.
I'm down for it. So with that, though, as we progress on to the different type of vehicle, obviously there's going to be all of those requirements in terms of regulatory and whatnot. Mark wants to know, what kind of cadence do you think we can expect then for Starship next year? Alex, what do you think?
Well, they want, as I call it, 25 in 25, because it's 25 launches. It's actually not my doing of saying that. It's actually from Tory Bruno, because at one point ULA was also wanting to launch 25 times in 2025, but that's probably not going to happen. And also probably for Starship as well. I don't see them launching 25 times next year. I find it hard. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not going to launch more times. Of course, they're going to launch a lot more times than just 4 in the next year. But I will say, going from 4 to 25, that's more than 6 times the ramp up in cadence. Just for reference, they have not done that at any time with Falcon 9, and that was, right now. Like right now, for example, for Falcon 9, they can reuse boosters and everything. They have really short turnaround times on the pads and everything, and still, that's not really the case, right? I do think a 3-fold increase in the cadence, like going from 4 to 12, for example, like half of that target, might be doable. I think it's within reach, 1 launch per month. Especially because they are producing boosters and ships about 1 per month, and if they reuse the boosters, then they don't need to put a lot of effort into the boosters, especially once they go to version 2. It's probably going to take a while to get used to those as well on the booster, because it's a lot more complex. But yeah, I don't see 25, but I can see at least double digits. I think there's a good chance there's a path there to do that. Maybe in chat they're going to be telling me now that I'm super, depressive and negative and everything. And I'm like, I know what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is not really something for 25 flights in 2025. We'll see. Prove me wrong, SpaceX.
Ryan, do you have a prediction?
I think maybe once a month, starting in February at the earliest. And that's conservative. So maybe they can ramp up at the end, but, right now, it's just in my gut. Once a month really seems to be Pad A has seen some stuff, let's put it that way. And it does take a little while to churn over to the next launch. So maybe they'll be able to do it every 2 weeks, but right now, monthly feels realistic to me right now. I hope they can get it faster though, but I think maybe 11 or 12 might be. I'm expecting minimum of 10, hoping for more. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I think 10 is definitely a safe bet for next year. Although, again, there's a lot of things that have to go into it, keeping in mind that you've got the licensing, of not only getting the licensing, but then maintaining it. Because if something goes wrong and it goes off plan, then we have to deal with all of that again of, coming up with the corrective plan, letting that corrective plan be accepted, ending all the mishap investigations, or at least allowing them to fly while that mishap investigation is continuing. Is public safety at risk? There's a lot that goes into place with that. So I could see 10 definitely being a safe starting point here, with the knowledge that it could potentially be less. All right. Let's see here. Hopefully, if we do get the 10 next year, that would mean going all the way through the winter, the spring, summer, fall, all the different seasons. But we want to make sure that you're prepared for every single season. And I think the best way to do that is merch from shop.nasaspaceflight.com. That includes right now, especially as we enter the winter season, coming up, our holiday merch. We have the awesome knitted sweaters, we have the blankets, we have the beanies. They have some awesome designs. Of course, we've got Starbase designs, we've got Dragon designs, we've got heat shield tile designs, all of these, and of course, some of the classics from last year as well. I love the Starbase knitted ones. They're so good, and they're actually really, really warm. It is a nice knit on it, and this is still my personal favorite. But that's just because I loved Polaris Dawn with that EVA shot in there. So that is at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Now, I have conveniently not discussed something. Phil here.
The elephant in the room, shall we say?
Yeah, Phil here is saying, Chad wants a patch leak. Love this place, NSF. Thank you. Yes, patch leak. Got people saying, hey, you know, you're avoiding all the questions about the patch for Flight 6. And guess what? You're right. We are. Until now. Are you ready for the reveal of Flight 6 patch? Well, you're going to have to wait just a little bit longer. How much longer? Tonight. We've got a very special thing happening today. So, we have the dailies, as we call them, the updates of what's going on at Starbase, both the ambient sound as well as one that is narrated, typically by DOS. In case you didn't know, they have narration now as well. And somewhere hidden in that daily that is posting later tonight will be a link so that you can go and pre-order the Flight 6 patch. It's not going to be obvious. It's not like DOS is going to shout, oh, here's your link. You're going to have to pay attention to it. So there will be a link to pre-order Flight 6 patch in the video coming out later today. Now, members are probably going, hey, what about us? We're members. We usually should get first access to it. And you're right, we love our members here. So we will have a link available to members exclusively as well later tonight if you don't want to go digging through said video. So if you're not a member already and you want that Flight 6 patch pre-order early, make sure you get yours. Now's the time to join. Hopefully that answers some of your questions about the Flight 6 patch. Are you guys excited for it?
Well, I've seen it, so, you know, it doesn't really apply to me. I've seen it. I'm just going to say, you know, I'm going to flex that. I've seen it. I've seen the patch. It's brilliant. You should buy it. I haven't been paid to say that. I promise.
No, we have not been paid to say anything about how good or awesome they are. It's our genuine thoughts on it. And yes, Pauline, again, killing it, especially with the quick turnaround between Flights 5 and 6. All right, let's get to some other non-patch related questions then, now that that's out of the way. Here's a question from Dothamer saying, do you think we might see a double full stack closer to the end of 2025 or early 2026? And I think that also kind of goes along with where are we at with that Pad B work, Alex?
Poof. I really have no idea. Oh, by the way,
Hi,
Jake.
One down, buddy. Let Alex answer.
Yeah, I don't really have much idea, to be fair. So the Pad B right now, it is obviously the tower has been completed. They're still doing a lot of work internally. They're still building out the flame trench as well. They have to do a lot of foundation work there. The chopsticks are still being worked on. The carriage system, both of them, so the chopsticks, the carriage system, and the ship quick disconnect arm are all being built. Well, not being built, but at least worked on at Sanchez at Starbase. Also, the OLM is also being built there and worked on as well. There's a lot of work to be done there. One of the latest things that we have seen, though, was the draw works for the chopsticks for that carriage system being installed. I believe it was yesterday that it was brought to the launch site and installed there on the launch tower. So at least that's one piece of progress, but of course that's one of thousands of things that they need to complete to have this tower ready. I really don't know if we even gonna see a double full stack, or they're just gonna be going ahead and sort of, you know, redo Pad A before they even put a vehicle on Pad B. We have no idea, to be fair. And so I also have and right now it's so far away, right, in time that there's no way to really have a say on either one of or the other, because it's, it could be both, right? And so, yeah, I have no idea right now. It could happen, sure. There's a chance. How big of a chance? I have no idea.
Well, I mean, the big thing, at least for next year, would be to finally get that orbital flight, even if we don't get a double full stack yet. Which, God, I want to see that double stack. I keep thinking back to STS-125, STS-400, where you had the two shuttles on the pads at the same time, which I absolutely love. I would love to see that. And again, you can see there the banana for scale at work as we take a look at one of the dailies, similar to the one tonight, that will have that link to the patch. But in terms of next year, for Flight 7, Ledling wants to know, Ryan, can Flight 7 be an orbital flight?
I think so. If they can prove they can restart that Raptor in space. Once SpaceX can prove that, I don't really see a reason why they wouldn't want to go fully orbital with Ship 33 on Flight 7, because they will know they can deorbit it. Ship 33 uses Raptor V2 engines, the same that's on Ship 31 that's about to fly. So same type of engines, and I think they would have the confidence to do that. And I don't really understand why they would want to do another suborbital flight when they have the confidence in the vehicle to go fully orbital. So I think so.
Alex?
Does Alex disagree with me? Are we fighting this now?
I have no idea. I mean, sure, it'll just take a bit more paperwork. I've always thought that at least version 2 of the ship, or block 2, or whatever name you want to use, would be the ones that will actually go into orbit, to a true orbit, right? I've always kept this thinking that it was not going to be the current version, the current generation of ships may not be able to survive more than maybe a couple of orbits at most. There are many upgrades on version 2, but one of the upgrades, for example, is vacuum jacketing on some of the cryogenic lines inside of the vehicle, which allows it for have a much better insulation of these. It does, it lowers the leak rates and everything. There's always leaks when you have cryogenics and all of these systems, but if you can reduce all of that to a minimum without needing heavy insulation or anything like it, then that's a lot that you can gain from that. And one of the things that we've seen is precisely that, vacuum jacketing on some of the transfer lines within the vehicle and everything. And so those are just like, that's one of the many other things that are needed for long duration in orbit. Of course, they'll probably also need some kind of power source as well. We have not seen anything of the like we've not seen anything like a solar panel or fuel cell or anything. If they were to have fuel cells, though, I would not expect to see anything like that, to be fair, because it's probably going to be something internal to the vehicle or something like that, maybe at the bottom of the payload bay or something like that. But again, in order to be able to do an orbital flight, the ship needs to survive. And the problem is, if you're trying to go into an orbit and then dispose of the ship, or at least try a landing in the ocean, right? Something like on Flight 4 and 5, you need a way to be able to pinpoint that, to be able to control that. And that's why they need that what Ryan was explaining before, that relight test to be done on Flight 6. That is a very key, crucial piece of technology. Not technology, but like a piece of procedure that they need to test, that they need to make sure that it works, and that a Starship can do precisely. So that is one of the many things. Again, could it be on Flight 7? Maybe. I will bet more for a higher flight number, maybe 8, 9, 10, something like that. Maybe the first flight they don't want to risk it, and also it would involve more paperwork, because again, when you try to bring that back, maybe it's not going to be the same area that they're using already, right? They're using the Indian Ocean. They will need to align it in such a way to do that, right? And so it will probably be in another area. I'm mostly sure that it probably will be in the Pacific Ocean, but I have the clock here. So,
Well, all right. There's the timer for that. So hopefully we'll get that orbital flight. Then the big thing after once we get to orbit is when payloads. That's what Daedalus wants to know. When do you think, Ryan, and again, speculation here, when do you think we'll finally get a payload, even if it is just dummy Starlinks?
Oh, see, this is one of the hard ones. You know, I just can I just say next year. You know, I think if they can get a few orbital flights under their belt, maybe by the second half of next year they'll be flying, you know, Starlink V3 or Starlink 3 or whatever SpaceX decides to call it, because I doubt it's going to be Starlink V2 anymore, because Falcon 9 has been launching V2 Mini for over a year, so I doubt it's going to be that version anymore. I don't know. I'm going to say second half 2025, potentially. That's my rough guess. Alex has got his hands like this, so I think he's probably going to inflict us with some of his wisdom.
Kevin, get the timer ready.
no, I was just going to say they have already submitted paperwork for it. So about a month ago, so by the way, it is November 13th. So a month ago, Flight 5 happened. They caught a booster. A few days before that flight, SpaceX requested to the Federal Communications Commission to approve the launch and deployment of V3 satellites, the ones that are going to be launching on Starship. And they did a bunch of other modifications as well. One of them was specifying that they want to launch to 32-degree inclination orbits. So in order to get to those, instead of doing the same, instead of threading the needle between Cuba and Florida, they're going to have to do it between Cuba and Mexico. So between, the Yucatan and Cuba. So that's going to be a different launch profile. Gonna need more, more paperwork for that. But they also said that they're already working on that as well. One of the footnotes and things that they had on the document said that they have already submitted to the FAA that kind of change. So I assume that we're probably close, maybe within a couple of flights, maybe 3 or 4 flights at most. I will say they are not waiting around. They are already doing all of this preparatory work, right, of putting everything together so that every agency and everything gives them the green light. So hopefully we're going to see that in the next few flights, maybe spring, middle of next year, I could say. I don't know, like just to give a complete invented time frame, but that could be a doable one.
Honestly, that logically makes sense. I think it's going to be sooner than later, though. That's my hope, at least. Let me take a moment and thank some more people here, because the support's been building up, and we really, really appreciate it. Marco, thank you very much for the support. Also, who's excited about 2 launches before the FAA could give out 1 license? Well, technically, this is 2 licenses given out by the FAA for 5 and 6, so that's all good. Patrick, saying thank you for all your rocket coverage. Mr. Map, any news about the weather for a possible Starship flight next week?
I don't think
we heard you
Ryan.
there.
Ryan, check your
I believe
audio.
we have Ryan muted. But yeah, there we go. Anyway, he'll run back. He'll come back with sound. We'll come back to that. Marcus, thank you very much for the support. No message there, but still appreciated. Jonathan Passy saying they're flying down with their son, staying on South Padre Island. Should we watch from Isla Blanca? Other options? Rocket Ranch, boats? I mean, all of those, I believe, are pretty good viewing points from what I've heard. Definitely Rocket Ranch. They've got some great viewing opportunities over there. Definitely check them out. They're also good friends at the channel here. Isla Blanca is guaranteed to be a good spot if you can get in, because that fills up pretty quickly from my understanding. So definitely keep an eye out for that.
I do apologise. My mic pack died because Alex's answer was so long, so I just had to go and swap it now quickly. I will answer the question
What's
from earlier.
this? You're throwing me under the bus right now.
I don't know who this Mr. Map fella is, but the forecasting is still a little far out. Hopefully we'll have Adam on later in the week with his meteorological wisdom on clouds and stuff. But currently the flight is scheduled for the same day that Flight 2 was last year. And Flight 2 is beautiful, so I'm hoping that the weather carries across to this year.
Ryan, you say that you're not Mr. Map, but I do remember you on our launch live stream for Flight 5 being in front of a map.
I was in front of a chart as well. I was in front of more things than a map.
Are we going to see you again in front of a map for Flight 6?
I don't know. You'll have to tune in to find out. So there you go.
Well,
wow, yeah.
That doesn't make you want to watch nothing, Will.
There you go.
I figured with the weather maps and the Mr. Map, I would ask Ryan. Nick, not only does he speak French, I hear he also dabbles in English. Occasionally I speak English, you know, every now and then. Delstar86, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Ethereal Swordsman has officially gone unhinged here. Bringer of Chaos, Master of Raptors, Sword of the Stars, Breaker of Stream Hosts, I am ethereal. And yes, admitting they are mildly unhinged, so at least appreciate that. Anonymous, thank you for getting the items from the shop there. Telstar86 also talking about a nightmare that they had. They caught Ship 26. The horror.
Oh dear.
Oh, the horror. No.
There is no hype for that ship. There is no hype. No hype for Ship 26.
No.
The train for that
chopped up.
Yeah, the train for that has no rails and no power and nothing.
Well, here's another good question, also from Angelus, who says, you talked about the number of launches and the status of the ship in 2025, but do you think there will be a booster reused in 2025? Alex, what do you think?
I think there's a good chance. I will not put my hand, out for that, but maybe we'll see something like that. And hopefully also a ship catch as well. I'm not sure about a reuse of a ship though. But definitely perhaps a boost reuse might not be that far out or outlandish. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my personal thought would be either end of the year or beginning of next year, but I'm also on the little skeptical side in terms of Starship dates, just because I've known Elon time long enough.
Can I be Mr. Optimist for a moment
Ryan,
and hopefully try and get a better nickname in the chat? I really... I would be surprised.
My now going crazy here.
I would be. I can hear Sawyer fine, so hopefully it's okay. I'm not 100% sure what's happening.
I can hear Ryan perfectly.
Here is one from
I think Sawyer's just going to keep going, so I'll just let him keep going.
Who was asking how
Sawyer?
or through what documentation does SpaceX actually ask the government for the dates that they would get the launch? Do we know?
Maybe we should fix the audio first.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay, do you have it?
I think we're good now. Yeah, I hear everyone again.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on. Technology is loving us today, folks.
Let's do it again. From the top.
Welcome to Countdown Till... Oh, wait, wrong top.
Not that top.
Can we go back to the booster for a sec? Because I want to be Mr.
Sorry.
Optimist
Please
for a
go back
moment.
to the booster.
The booster.
Yes.
Mr. Optimist, I would be very surprised personally if they don't reuse a booster next year. I think booster reuse is really... this is meant to be a fully reusable launch vehicle. What's the point of catching these things if you're not going to reuse them, right? That's my kind of opinion on that. And I think I would put money on Booster 13 being that first one to be reused, assuming that they catch it without any issues, similar to Booster 12, right? So this booster that's on your screen. I think a lot of people are kind of hedging their bets based on what SpaceX has done with Falcon 9. However, the difference here is this is a completely different type of development, and Falcon 9 had paying customers on board. And, you know, paying customers were hesitant about reusable rockets. They weren't sure that reusable rockets is a good idea, right? So they didn't really want to be on reused boosters back in the early days of Falcon 9. This time around, SpaceX, they don't have customers yet. They don't have payloads. They are just launching these to develop these vehicles. So I honestly could see a booster reuse much quicker than most people are thinking, and I'm hoping it's next year. And like I said at the top, I'd be very surprised if it isn't going to happen next year.
Yeah, I'm just looking through my spreadsheet, and since the first Falcon 9 booster that landed was not reused, but it was, you know, tested and you know, inspected and everything, and it's now at the headquarters in Hawthorne. The next booster that landed, though, that one was reused. So, if you will, something like Booster 13 was, if, you know, knock on wood, that actually Booster 13 lands, because not all of the Falcon 9 landing attempts were successful. But if it lands, and it's the second one to successfully land, then it will be on par with the first Falcon 9 booster that was reused. However, that reuse didn't come until 9 missions after that landing of the booster. But because there were a bunch of, as Ryan was saying, because there were a bunch of customer missions in between, and, you know, reuse was a new thing kind of deal, right? And it was not proven and everything. Somebody the other day, I think it was maybe on the Flame Trench last week or something like that, someone actually brought up in the comments, but, you know, Starship is not an operational rocket, whereas Falcon 9 was already operational. And it's true that second landing and, you know, that first booster to be reused, the first flight of that booster was Falcon 9's 23rd flight, and their used flight was the 32nd, which is funny because it's, you know, the opposite. But the deal is Starship. Sorry, I have thing in my eye. The deal is Starship, precisely because it's not an operational rocket, it doesn't fly customers, they can actually risk it and fly reused boosters if they will. Like, if they want to do that, why not? It's their own rocket, their own program. Of course, they have the issues that, you know, maybe the FAA says, oh, you're grounded because you're a rocket exploder or whatever, if something happens, right? But, you know, why not try it? They also had that issue or, you know, concern, I guess, when they launched the first reused boosters on Falcon 9, but yet they did it, and now it's commonplace. It's actually weird when you see a new booster flying, right? So what better way to try it out as early as possible? I do not see any you know, impediments for them to not try it next year. I just, you know, I don't want to fully bet on it, because to be fair, there's also a good chance that they don't try it. But we'll see. There's definitely, you know, plenty of room, plenty of margins for that. And there we go.
You don't think maybe they would wait for the version 2 boosters to start coming out yet? Because I know Spider Space Agency was asking when we can expect hardware for those newer boosters. Would they still try it potentially with these version 1s? Ryan, what do you think?
We haven't seen any V2 booster hardware, Block 2 hardware, whatever you want to call it, hardware yet, I do not believe. And it's kind of like, we don't know when it's going to show up. You know, come on, SpaceX, time's ticking, we're waiting, we want some new hardware. So the boosters they're building for the foreseeable future are going to be the current version of boosters. The boosters they're going to be catching are obviously going to be the current version of boosters. I honestly think waiting for the next gen booster is going to be too long of a wait. They are on a schedule with the Artemis program. They need to be able to get a vehicle to the moon that can land humans on the surface in a couple years' time, 2-3 years' time. What's the point of waiting around with, oh, we'll just wait for V2 boosters. They're going to be so behind on schedule. They should just start doing it now. They should do it on this flight. They should just reuse boosters straight away. Maybe I'm being too optimistic with that, but I just think they need to get to, in my opinion, they need to get on this as soon as possible. This vehicle's meant to be rapidly reusable. You know, it can be rapid, but it can't be reusable if you're too scared to reuse them. You know, so what's the point of waiting?
One of the arguments as well to be, for reusability of the boosters, even if they are V1, for example, is precisely that we still have not seen any hardware for version 2, right? We have not seen any new boosters. Like we're showing now this replay of Ship 31's static fire test. Maybe, I don't know if we can go to the production side, but there's actually a barrel section for one of the future boosters, Booster 16, that is still a Block 1, version 1 booster out there, right? And it's still not looking like we're gonna see, that's the barrel section that I just mentioned. It doesn't look like we're anywhere close just yet to see any of that hardware for version 2 or block 2 of the booster. So for a while we're going to have this weird mixing of version 1 of the booster with version 2 of the ship. And one of the reasons we think they are holding out, on building those version 2 of the boosters, it's not just because the booster is a lot more complicated, like the engine section alone, for example, you have a bunch of things going on there, the manifolds and whatnot. It's a lot more complicated. But also because with a new version and a new pad, we've seen that pad, at least, it doesn't seem like it will have the 20 quick disconnect arms that grab onto the Raptor engines, and they provide all of these startup fluids for those 20-hour engines. So there's something different about the version 2 of the booster, at the very least, probably because of that. So a version 1 booster will not be able to work on that pad, which means, and this goes back to what I was about to say, there's an argument to be made about reusing Block 1 boosters, and that is, if they take longer to get the second pad ready, they don't need to slow down cadence. They can still keep flying from this very first pad by flying Block 1 boosters. And of course, there's going to be a moment where they're going to transition to producing version 2 of the boosters. But maybe they have version 2 boosters, but they don't have the pad for it, right? They can still reuse the ones that are going to be Block 1s. And so that's an argument to be made about reusing Block 1 boosters, even though they may be producing version 2s. And I'm mixing version and block here, but you know what I mean, right? Next generation, whatever.
We know what you mean. And also, slowing down the cadence. Ryan, are we slowing you down? Get it?
What?
Cadence, cadence.
Oh. Okay.
It's just the perfectly put. Well, I know the big excitement, of course, is the flight coming up on Monday. So, which is so crazy to think. A little over 120 hours to go. That's it. Couple sleeps. But what do each of you think will be the biggest milestone for the Starship program in 2025? Ryan, I'll start with you and then Alex.
Oh. So Mr. Optimist says reuse of a booster. A booster is going to launch again for the second time. Maybe they'll catch a ship towards the end of the year, but again, Mr. Optimist is of the opinion that catching ships is actually going to be much harder than people expect. SpaceX has landed boosters 350 odd times with Falcon 9. They've caught a booster once. They've never recovered something from orbit before. Never, ever recovered something from orbit before. So I think that might be more difficult. Maybe that's more difficult than they're expecting. But again, never bet against SpaceX. I 100% believe they can do it. So definitely booster reuse, potentially a ship catch if they can figure that out.
Alex?
I think there's going to be at least multiple big milestones. I'm looking forward to, when we see an orbital flight of a ship when a ship is in orbit also for multiple orbits, not just like one single revolution or anything like it, like multiple orbits. And if they can even get like multiple days in orbit, that will be awesome, because that's also one of the key tests that they are looking forward for the human landing system for NASA. But also at the same time, for refueling and everything, that's also another thing. That refueling test, they want to do that on 2025. I'm not sure that's gonna happen in 2025, but hey, as I always say, SpaceX proved me wrong, right? Yeah, so that's some of the operational big milestones. Of course, returning a ship to a catch, that will be awesome to see as well. It will not just be a key technological, demonstration or anything, but it's also going to be cool to see a ship coming back to the launch site and be caught and everything. That I'm looking really forward to that. But other than that, I obviously, again, payloads. We've been touching on all of these different milestones today, right? Orbit, payloads, namely Starlink, and landing the ship, all of the things. Reusing booster, version 2 of the booster, many things.
I personally think the biggest significance is going to be when they get that first payload deploy. I mean, orbit, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. I feel pretty reliable with that. Again, especially with the engine relight test coming up on this one. If that goes well, to have that deorbit capability, that'll be great. But the second it deploys its first payload, even if it is just a dummy payload, then we have what will soon be an operational vehicle. As much as these are still test flights, Starship flight tests, whatever you want to name them, the second you get that payload deployment, now you have a rocket that's viable, that's operational, that's ready to start delivering things into space and delivering on the promises that SpaceX has made after all this time of something that has large mass to orbit in addition to full reusability. I think if they can get that in 2025, that is a massive step forward. So that's just my personal opinion on that. Which, there was a question I saw about that engine fire, of why are they firing the engine forward if they're trying to prove that they can use it to deorbit, which you would think they would want to then burn retrograde to it, right?
Well, they just need to make sure that the Raptor fires for the duration, right? And that it is accurately timing that and everything. You don't really need to, like, the pointing of where you're pointing to, that's not really matter as much as just making sure that the timing is the one that the ship needs to fire for, right? You can also test that as just telling it, even if it's not time-based, because a bunch of these things are not time-based, they are just guidance-based. But you can tell that of, tell the ship, you need to arrive to X velocity and altitude and whatnot, right? And so the ship is going to fire its engine trying to target that. If it can target that, then it can also target at the orbit burn, right? That extrapolation also works as well, because it's like, well, it can do that. It can also do the deorbit burn, because it can essentially do the burn as it is being commanded and programmed and sent to. Similar thing, for example, if you are trying to go to a higher orbit and you want to do a change in your orbit, so the ship has pre-programmed that it needs to go to X orbit with Y perigee and C apogee and W inclination, all that stuff, right? All of the parameters. So the ship will try to target that with its firing. That'll be in the future when they go into an orbit, for example, for Starlink. They're going to need to target an orbit, right? When they go to Mars, they need to target also a specific, very specific and accurate burn to get all the way to Mars and, have that right on the money. So the point is, here's what you need to do. Please do that, right? That's the bottom line. The ship needs to demonstrate that it can fire the engines as it is commanded to target a certain parameter.
Yeah. This is basically all the proof of concept for it. Once they know they can burn it, then they can work on the specifics of here's how we're going to burn it, here's where we're going to burn it, the direction we're going to burn it. Burn, burn, burn. Let's see. As we're looking at Booster 13, there is a potential that it could move very, very soon, is what we're hearing in the back channels. So we'll stay alive a little bit longer here as we keep an eye on it. Looking at that hot staging ring, though, do we know, Ryan, if there have been any changes made to the hot staging ring between Flight 5 and Flight 6? Or is it basically the same?
I don't believe so. I think it is going to be the exact same. Obviously not the exact same ring, because the exact same ring was fished out of the ocean we saw on our last flyover a couple of weeks ago on Starbase Update. I definitely would not be reusing that ring. It's very, very dented and very, very rusty. So it's obviously not the exact same ring, but the design, it looks pretty much identical. So I highly doubt SpaceX would have done a huge design overhaul on that piece of hardware, especially this is going to be the final flight of the V1 ship. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they'll need something beefier for the V2 ship. I don't know, but at least for now it looks the same.
Yeah, especially once you get to the larger diameter vehicles, you'll obviously need the larger diameter hot stage ring, but it seems like it's pretty much the same from what we can see there. Now, I did have that question that I was asking earlier when I was apparently talking to myself and over everyone, which I apologize. Do we actually know how SpaceX tells the FAA and all these different agencies, I want to launch on X date? Is that through NODAM applications, or how does SpaceX say, I want this date, please? Do we know, Alex?
Yeah, there's a bunch of procedures there, and like, for example, just to get an idea, for communications, the license, for example, says that before, like 30 days or 60 days beforehand, they need to communicate with the Federal Communications Commission that they're going to be launching, and they're going to be doing X profile and, whatever, and they're going to use Y frequencies and whatnot. Like, they need to tell the FCC with that. They also need to coordinate with a bunch of other agencies, not just the FAA, but sometimes they also need to coordinate with NASA, because they also fly through orbits where some of their satellites are going to. Like, there's a bunch of these things that they need to coordinate with. It will probably take a whole different video. Probably should make a video about that. We'll see. But there's a bunch of coordination there with many different agencies, and it's not just about regulations or anything like. It's just that it's also good to be able to talk to other agencies. Hey, we're doing this. We're flying, like, for example, with NASA, we're flying through your, the same orbits that your satellites are flying through, just so you know, right? I think recently, for example, there was this sort of agreement of flying Starlink satellites lower than the ISS, and that can impact the visiting schedule to the ISS, because that's where a bunch of these vehicles, Cygnus, Progress, and whatnot, go through to get to the ISS, right? So there's a bunch of these different. But yeah, in a bunch of the regulatory side of things, it's like, you need to tell me that within 10 days or within 15 days before the launch, this and that needs to be submitted, and there's a bunch of these different things that they need to do with different agencies. Again, FAA, FCC, NASA, even the U.S. Space Force. Even, for example, for Starship flights, the Space Launch Delta 45 in Florida also supports, because they cross sort of the airspace, so to speak, right? Because they go across the Gulf and then they reach Florida, and then they use all of the tracking assets from the Cape to be able to do some of the communications as well there. So there's so many coordinations that need to happen, right? It's quite amazing that these things even happen so often.
One thing that apparently does seem to happen very often is Alex's long answers. According to a poll, Alex's answers are so long. How long are they? They're so long in depth that they cause, as you voted number 1, the heat death of the universe.
People ask, right? So I'm giving what they're asking.
Number 2, NSF to enter patch 7 reveal. Not even flight 6, flight 7. Ryan's batteries on his mic pack to run out, and Jake to meow when cat food. That is the results of the poll that was just in chat. I do appreciate that. Again, you see there, that ship, or that booster, hopefully rolling out very soon ahead of flight. Conan's wondering, by the way, Alex, did they ever test Starship TPS tiles on Dragon?
Ooh, yes. Yes, that was on CRS 18, if I remember correctly. That was with Dragon 1, none other than that, right? Yeah, that was a long time ago. Hang on, I'm gonna try and find. I think it was 2018, if I'm not mistaken. CRS 18. Yeah, 2019. July 2019. Yeah, that was actually wow. That's essentially Starhopper times, because that was the 150-meter flight that was in August of 2019. So yeah, wow. Just, I'm just seeing myself with gray old hair.
Back in my day.
But yeah, they flew a few tiles there. It was mostly just to make sure that the material worked. It was not about, sticking. Like it was a special mounting specialized for Dragon. It was not really like right now the problems that they have with the TPS is not about whether the material can survive the reentry. There's no doubt it can survive reentry, right? The problem is, do those tiles stay on the ship, right? Do they break? Because they also have these interactions, they expand because it's hot and everything. They contract because they're also with cryogenics on the other side when they are on the tank section, for example. So of course there's all of these different things that they need to figure out. They need to try out, and that's the key big thing of the TPS. For example, you can see there 2 little patches of maybe like missing tiles or some instrumentation. I have really not looked the detailed pictures because I have been very busy lately. But you can see they're still trying things. Of course, as well, the sites we've talked about, they have removed tiles for catching in the future and everything. But that's the key problem right now of TPS. It's not that the material doesn't work. They already figured that out many years ago, and it's most sure that it does work. The problem is also, that sticking those tiles staying on the vehicle and not breaking.
I mean, talk about testing newer systems on older vehicles. If I recall correctly, there was the Dragon Eye, one of the tests for Dragon's docking system that flew aboard the space shuttle.
Yep.
And was used to help test its systems before
twice
Dragon was even a thing for ISS docking.
If I'm not mistaken, one of them was on Endeavour, I think it was. And then another one on Discovery, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yes, one was on the best shuttle.
Because they did it on Endeavour, and then they realised, we should probably do this on the best shuttle as well. So then they did it on Discovery.
I think it was first on Discovery and then on Endeavour. I think
it works better the other way around, Alex. Why do you have to ruin it now?
I think it was that order. But yeah,
no matter what, it did fly on the best shuttle, at least. It did fly on Endeavour.
Yeah, we can agree on that.
Yep.
Yes, it flew on Endeavour.
And,
looks like the booster might be moving and about to roll.
Ooh, potentially.
Yeah,
they've still got
that's
that big
probably
lift
why
in front of it,
changed.
though.
It's okay. It looks like I'm scrolling back here on SBL. Sorry, I'm literally looking at my laptop here.
You're going for the A/B test.
Yep. Like the old days. This is what when we have testing live streams and whatever, this is what I do. You just can see it now because we are with cameras, but yeah, I just go to SBL and scroll back and forwards to see any changes, and definitely it has moved. And you can also see that the griffins have rotated, as Ryan explained at the beginning of the live stream. So seems like they're about to leave the mega bay. We'll see.
There we go. Which someone did ask earlier, and I know we don't bring this up often, but it's still a very good question. Ryan, why don't they have any folding mechanisms on the grid fins? Why do they just leave them out?
It's because they don't need any folding mechanisms. So unlike on Falcon 9, Super Heavy can sustain, or the entire vehicle rather, can sustain the forces with the grid fins out on ascent. So there's no need for them to fold in. And without needing any motors or equipment to fold and unfold and such, it removes a part. And, you know, Elon loves deleting parts. You know, less parts, more better in terms of Elon's point of view. He likes deleting things, so deleting that folding mechanism, they don't need it to fold, unlike on Falcon 9. So why have it fold if you don't need it?
Why more parts when less parts do?
Exactly.
That makes sense there. Let's see. I do want to thank some people real quick. Supreme RC, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. Harrison Kins, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. Martin pointing out that someone found a link. Evil here. Dr. Evil mode.
Well, if you found the link. Oh no.
Oh no, whatever shall we do? The link was found. But yeah, you'll some people will find it. Again, if you can't find it, don't want to go digging for it just yet, there will be a special link announced in the video coming out later today, or daily. And for members, see the people just joining there will be a members link. So it's a little less digging when that actually happens. As for the video today, though, you're going to have to look very, very closely, because it's in there, but it's hidden in there. A little link scavenger hunt for the Flight 6 patch. I like the mystery surrounding this one. It's a lot of fun. Luis wondering, by the way, with these grid fins, do you think that SpaceX addressed the warping of the grid fins on Booster 13, Alex?
I don't think so. I didn't see that as a big deal, to be fair. They have dealt with a lot of worse issues with grid fins. Trust me, I've seen that with Falcon 9. It's just steel. It's not like they are really expensive grid fins. They're probably even good still for another flight. And if they reuse boosters like for another flight, they can get another 5 or 6 flights out of that. I don't know, like reusing all of the at least the ones that we've seen that are block ones. They could probably do that easily. And if not, they can just, it's just steel panels. It's rather easy. It's not like Falcon 9, which is titanium cast pieces, like the largest titanium cast pieces like in the world, right? That is a really expensive piece of hardware. If it gets damaged, you're paying for that, right? Those grid fins, though, they're probably a lot more cheaper than the titanium grid fins on Falcon 9.
Yeah, that's also a good point, too. Here's one that I saw earlier that's just fun, and I would love to see actually happen. I don't know if it will, though. Anthony M. saying, I know it's early, but do you think they would do an emergency escape test for Starship away from the booster like they did for the Crew Dragon in flight aboard? I mean, I love the idea. Ryan, I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm just not sure, This kind of goes back to a thing we were talking about ages ago. Like, Dragon is a separate spacecraft from the second stage on Falcon 9, right? So when you put people on Starship, like the Starship proper, are you still going to put a flight termination system on that? Like, it's the second stage, but it's going to have people on board. It's also the ship. So we get into this really peculiar situation. Do we treat it as a second stage? Do we treat it as a spaceship? Like, where are we in that situation? And will we even have an abort mode? Because, we've we've seen Elon talk about before on the internet. We hope the ship will have enough thrust to weight ratio in order to escape with all of its Raptors ignited. It's not going to have, at least at the moment, that kind of hypergolic abort system that we see on Dragon. So maybe not. Personally, I think an abort mode is a smart thing to do. But if you want an airliner-like operation with Starship, airliners don't have abort modes. They can glide, that's about it. They don't have parachutes or anything like that in the worst case scenario. So maybe Starship just won't need an abort. I don't know. I think an abort mode would be smart though. That's where I kind of sit on the fence at the moment.
You were saying that just as the booster is like peeking out of the mega bay. It's super, super funny. But I will say, if you want to see that, just wait until Monday. Like, we're talking about all of this, what they already do. Light the ship and escape out of the booster while the booster is still firing. That's called hot staging, right? Like, it seems what I'm saying is like super silly and stupid, but it's for real, right? If you want to test something like that, they have already done that. They can demonstrate already that they can fire away. The big problem, of course, is that you need to shut down the engines on the booster. If those engines are still running, sort of like on flight 1, and they do not shut down, the ship is not going anywhere. That booster is going to keep pressing. Even if you release the clamps, that booster is going to still, press against the ship because it will not have enough thrust to be able to fly away. That's one of the things that happens. That's why they shut down 30 of the 33 engines. Then they have enough thrust to be able to fire away from the booster, right? And so you really need that, especially, moreover, because the booster at hot staging, it's a lot emptier than at liftoff. Even at liftoff, you probably will still want to, I don't think a low altitude escape, for example, will be possible with a ship, for example, for multitude reasons I'm not gonna go into, because people are gonna say it's long answer, but yeah. Next time around.
Well, I mean, we're waiting for the booster to roll. We got some time, so it's okay.
Yeah, plenty.
Which, as we look at the bays here, Redness is wondering, do they need a new mega bay for the version 2 booster due to height? Ryan?
We were talking about this earlier in the stream, but for those of you just joining us, the V2 booster is going to be of a very similar size to the V1 booster, so we think these mega bays currently will be okay. However, when we go a generation afterwards, the render we've seen for Starship 3, V3, Block 3, whatever, that booster's getting a lot bigger, and they're going to need a much bigger bay in order to construct those vehicles. So that's when we should start to see bigger bays for SpaceX to build in. Maybe we'll have a Giga Bay, or a Terra Bay, or a Peta Bay. I don't know. Elon's probably going to come up with some crazy big order of magnitude name for a bigger high bay to build these boosters in.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what names they end up coming up with for these buildings. A Google Bay, Kevin suggesting in the background, although would that be Google or Googol?
A Yotta Bay, maybe?
Google Plex Cinemas.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure chat's going to come up now with some clever names for it. I'm interested to see what they come up with. A Michael Bay. That was clever. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what you guys have to come up with here. And also what they end up calling the one in Florida too, whatever they end up building there.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen so many different renders for the stuff at Florida. We've seen them, for like 2 or 3 years at this point. They've just, I think they've just been driving diggers around Roberts Road for fun, not really doing anything, because that's essentially what it looks like they've been doing for the last 3 years. Yeah, maybe they'll build like the biggest rocket factory that we've ever seen, or maybe they'll put some tents up. We don't know, but apparently they're doing stuff again. Maybe we'll find out.
I mean, that's perfectly put. Either beautiful tall buildings or tents.
Yeah.
I like it. Let's see. Maybe Gigabay replace High Bay in a year or two. Google Bay, still like that. By the way, Brian wants a long Alex answer as to why low altitude ship aborts don't work.
So one of my main reasons is because the Raptor vacuums at sea level, or at least close to sea level, produce actually less thrust than the sea level engines. There's a whole explanation about that, which comes down to how vacuum engines work. They are not that much efficient at sea level because of that expansion ratio. And also, if you've seen what happens at sea level, they need a stiffener ring to be able to fire as well. So for example, a low altitude, or at least close to liftoff, it will probably not work. I believe at one point, and also because right now with the 6 engines, even when they go to 9 engines, the thrust to weight ratio will still be less than 1. But if you are already in flight, you can at least get away from the booster. You will not go very far up, right? Like you're not going to be able to go into orbit or get your way out into space or whatever. Well, maybe if you are already in space, but that's not the point. But if you at least can use those engines to just get away from the booster. The problem is, of course, if you are on the ground, if you are close to the ground or about, right after liftoff and the booster, something happens with it and you want it to escape, you really need high thrust because you want to get away very far away to be able to have the time to then land with a ship, right? Whenever possible that you can land with that ship. I have no idea how that will go, but it will not be able to work in that sense. I could even go even deeper, but please don't ask about that. It will be a lot a lot more.
We need to get Alex his
time.
own show.
Yeah. Maybe we could do a video about that. There's a ton of video ideas out of these live streams most of the time.
Maybe. Another good video idea, which there's still some cool video ideas coming soon. PM. Don't ask about the Starlink.
Or the Raptor. Well, the Raptor is...
Yeah, the
after
Starlink
the
video
flight.
that's been in the works for over a year.
Well, I'm not going to talk about that one. Yeah.
Well, let me just say, as we watch things rolling out here, if you want to roll on over with some of your questions, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight. We are still continuing to take your questions and answer as many of them as we can, and depending on who it's directed to, it'll either be 30 seconds or 30 minutes. Love you, Alex.
I am very interested, though. I'm just looking at our clock again in the other corner to the one that I pointed at. We're approaching T-minus, or correctly, never earlier than minus 120 hours to go. So a round number is coming up, everybody. So that's going to be exciting.
That's
120 hours to go.
6 days.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
I couldn't count, so that's really useful.
22 minutes to... Wait, hang on. 6 days? No, 5 days. Oh my goodness. 5 days.
Yeah, especially if the window opens at 4. So at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
We put this guy in charge of physics. That's what we did. We put this guy in charge of physics.
I realized the moment that I thought, wait, hang on. If it were 6 days and you do 6 times 24, you get a number that ends in a 4. To get a number that ends on a 0, you need it to be 5. I did not do the date is 18th, right, for the launch, and today is 13th. No, I did not do that. I did the long way out.
We need you to recreate the emoji of the, well, actually.
Yeah, I have, hang on.
He's got the glasses on.
And I have the calculator here as well. So, yeah, there you go.
All right, let's see. Here's a good question from Danny Joe. And obviously we don't know the full extent of it yet. But with the thought here, Brian, how will the catch scraping affect booster reusability? Or do you think it will affect booster reusability?
Well, hopefully, the name chopsticks is a bit disingenuous because they don't squeeze the booster. They are perfectly, or meant to be perfectly positioned so that it doesn't touch the booster until the pins on the booster latch onto those chopsticks. So there shouldn't be any squeezing here. However, if they do knock the booster hard enough, then maybe they'll be able to, maybe on an unfortunate day, they will compromise the structural integrity of some of the rings on there. If so, that would obviously impact booster reusability because they'll damage the booster, and if you have a hole in your tank, you can't fuel it. So, that would probably be the end of the day for that booster. However, I'm kind of hoping that they won't end up scraping the booster with the chopsticks. It looked pretty clean on the last flight, and that was their first ever time ever catching a booster ever in history by anyone ever. So if they can get it that good first time, I think booster catching is pretty promising, and hopefully we won't have to worry about boosters being scraped at all with the chopsticks.
Ever? First ever?
Ever.
I mean, the only thing it seems like that would potentially continually get scratched would be the pins that it ends up landing on top of. Maybe that is as simple as just either replacing those or reinforcing those. But if you're squeezing the actual whole booster or the whole ship, I think you have a different problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the issues, right, is that they close the arms. They sort of, slap on the booster, and then the booster just slides in. So there's obviously some scrapping there, but it's not a huge deal. You have to balance how much does it get scrapped, and can the booster take that? Maybe all they can, maybe all they need in the future, if they realize this is really a big problem, right, that it may take away some flights out of the structure of the booster, they can just say, okay, we'll reinforce these sections, or maybe between flights, I don't know, maybe they can put some structures like really lightweight, slides or something on the side of the booster that may be able to improve the life of the booster and can fly multiple times. Maybe every 25 flights they need to refurbish the structure or something like that. We don't know, right? On the chopstick side of things, we did see scratches on those pads, but it also didn't seem to be really that big of a deal. We have not seen them, at least I have not seen them changing those. It seems like they're just gonna fly with this as it is on this next flight, so good for them, right? Like, that demonstrates that they don't need that big of a change, I guess. We'll see. Something that they're gonna be figuring out in the future. Let them cook.
Hold on, let them cook.
Let them cook.
Let's start speculating a little bit here about HLS and all of the future landing ones for a little bit, because there's a couple questions about that. Here's one from Redness, who's wondering, Alex, do you think we will have a fuel depot, or the tankers fill HLS directly?
There's going to be, as they say, a refueling station Starship, essentially. So it's just going to be a modified Starship to hold propellant for longer. And then the tankers will go fill that up. And then once that's filled up, HLS will launch, dock to it, refuel, and go to the moon. And to be fair, this can also work for Mars. Like, for Mars, it makes the most sense to do all of the big refuelings with tankers, with that station there, right? With that modified Starship to be able to hold and store that propellant. And then at the end, once you have all your people boarded and everything with your ship and everything, then you can send the people out there and just one refueling. They don't need to hang around in orbit or anything like it. Oh, this is the 10th refueling. When are they going to be done with it, right? Like, it's as long as an Alex answer. Oh my gosh, right? It's probably going to be something like that if they if they were to actually launch the tankers to the ship instead of just having a storage Starship kind of thing up in orbit, that'll be a lot easier for actual, not just Artemis and HLS, but also for everything else as well that they want to do, namely Mars.
Yes. And one of the issues that they might encounter once they actually do get there, though, is the landing. So Ryan, Yvonne wants to know, how will Starship land on rough terrain if it doesn't have landing legs for the moon or Mars?
I think the answer to that is it will need some sort of landing legs for the moon and Mars. We've seen the human landing system lander renders. They have landing legs. I'm sure there'll be something similar for Mars as well, because if you didn't know, there currently isn't a chopstick catch system installed on the moon and Mars. Fun fact. So in order to build the chopsticks, you need to get to the moon, and in order to get to the moon, you need your landing legs or your chopsticks, and you don't have your so it's this kind of recurring cycle here. So they will need landing legs is the answer to that question. So they will.
Yeah, I wonder, are they going to need to be, you think, more substantial than something like they did, say, for the SN testing, like when they kind of landed on SN10?
Yeah. So if you don't remember the high altitude hops, it was like a little blocks that just went bloop, and then it landed on the occasions where it didn't explode after landing with SN10 on those little crush core things. These legs would need to be bulkier, so it would be a proper kind of like a big leg that kind of slots out, and then a big pad that can land on the lunar regolith. Because especially on the moon, you need something pad E, because you're essentially landing on sand or lunar regolith, which is a much more coarser sand because it hasn't been weathered away because there's no weather. So they'll need something substantial in order to make sure they don't topple over or something like that.
And one advantage of the moon is that you don't need to re-enter through an atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
As you can see there, you don't have a heat shield or anything. It's easier. Like, I'm not gonna say that landing on the moon is super easy. You have a lot rougher terrain, as you can see there. That render, they rendered that well. How rough it is on the lunar south pole. It's also harder because the shadows are longer, because the sun is closer to the horizon, and so the shadows are longer. So any vision based landing algorithm that you use and software and whatever, it's gonna have a hard time. So you need to rely on multiple different inputs, like maybe LiDAR and radar and whatever you want to use. Everything that you can use, that's good, because it'll be able to land. And also you need a software that can detect things and be able to move around rocks and whatever. Because, unlike on Apollo, this is going to be fully automated. They're going to have a manual control, which will be awesome to see, by the way. But it's not going to be manual, right? It's not going to be, like Armstrong, oh, it's super rocky here, I'm going to move to this over, right? It's going to be automated. And of course, again, if they can, there's going to be a manual option if they need to do that. But as we've seen, sometimes automated landings don't work, and you topple over. And so, so that'll come in handy. But there's a bunch of other different issues with landing on the moon. But definitely dealing with a re-entry, it's not one of them. That's like the easiest one.
Yeah,
No
and
heat
admittedly,
shield or anything.
I feel like one of the trickier parts to all of this isn't so much the landing itself, it's getting all the tankers up there, getting all the fueling up there, all the loading up there. And Son of the Lion wants to know, Alex, when do you think we'll see the first fuel transfer test?
They want to do that next year. We'll see. They need the version 2 of the ship, definitely, for that. The campaign just essentially calls for the one ship that goes up, and then a few weeks later the second ship comes up and then docks and transfers fuel to the other. They're going to use the same ports, the same quick disconnect ports that they already use, and a docking mechanism to keep the two ships together, of course. So we need to see that on a vehicle. We need to see that kind of docking mechanism and all of the different systems for that. We'll see when that happens. I have no idea when that will happen. I'm definitely looking forward to that, but again, they want to do that next year. Whether they actually get to that, I have no idea. It's very complicated to get to that point. Just to put a very small example of how complicated it is, when you have Starship, right? We already know that it uses these vents and whatnot to be able to maneuver in space. It probably, especially the one that is going to go up and fill the other ship, it's going to carry probably about 100 tons of propellant on board. Those 100 tons of propellant are going to slosh around. As soon as you move the ship, one part of it will, the liquid inside will move and affect the tanks. Like, it's going to collide and everything. Like, every single time you make a move on that ship, it's going to affect the dynamics and the attitude control of the ship. That's going to be one of the key things that they're probably going to have to figure out. Having long endurance flights will help a lot with that, where they keep an attitude and then they move, and then they tell the booster, now that other attitude, keep it there, right? Like, that kind of thing. Right now, it's very simple. They go into orbit. It sort of like goes sideways. We've seen that in the last couple of flights. You see, it's sort of like sideways to the movement, and then it turns around and then points heat shield first, and that is all it does. Very simple movements, nothing huge. Docking to another vehicle, though, you need to do burns and approaches and you need to move your attitude. It's gonna be a lot more complicated than that. I'm looking forward to it, though. We'll see. It's not as easy as it sounds.
I thought you finished that answer 3 times throughout that answer, and I, for a brief moment, I felt some joy, and then you just kept going. But thank you for the
just
long
to
answer, Alex.
just to put an example, like, that's one little thing of all the things that need to tackle, right? For just the propellant transfer demonstration, that's the demonstration. Because it sounds easy, but it's but I also want to keep in mind, SpaceX likes these challenges. Like, they were born for this. That's essentially, they are hungry every single day for these challenges, and they attack them. I have no doubts they're gonna do that, right? It's just that sometimes the timelines take a little bit more time, precisely because they are complex. Yes, Kevin, I'm still going. I'm seeing the back channel. He's like, ooh, is this still going? But yeah, it's,
Is it safe to talk? Are we good?
Go ahead.
It's okay. We love you, Alex. It's fine. They're genuinely good answers, at least. So, and yeah, that poll earlier, I just caught up on it. Who would call it the Elon Bay? Just saying. Anyway, question along those lines from Danny Joe. I'll give this one to Ryan. Doesn't the ship need heat shields returning astronauts back from the moon to Earth, or do they get into a different ship that's in orbit?
So for the Artemis infrastructure, the HLS ship only does lunar orbit to the lunar surface, and then the lunar surface to lunar orbit. At least that's the current concept, assuming that Gateway exists. And I'm sure you've all seen things on the internet over the last 2 days on different large orange programs which may or may not be cancelled, judging by the result of the nationwide poll that took place last week in the US. Anyways, let's just assume that the current infrastructure remains. The idea is that HLS Starship does lunar orbit to the lunar surface, and the lunar surface to lunar orbit. The actual Earth to lunar orbit, and then lunar orbit back to Earth re-entry, is going to be conducted by Orion, which is NASA's deep space human-rated capsule, shall I call it, developed or manufactured by Lockheed Martin. So, pending the outcome of the heat shield investigation following Artemis 1, that vehicle should be totally safe and fine for the Artemis 3 and beyond crews to re-enter Earth's atmosphere from the distance of the moon, which is very far away, by the way. You could fit every single planet in the solar system between the Earth and the Moon. That's how far away the Moon is. You know, not the orbits of the planets, but the actual diameters of the planets. You could squeeze them between the Earth and the Moon. Moon is very far away, so you need a very good heat shield in order to cope with all of that thermal energy.
Yeah, 250,000 miles.
You know, that reminds me, sometimes I see these comments about, because you talk about the heat shield, and this comment is about the heat shield on Starship, right? The heat shield on, you mentioned it, the one on Orion, and I always see, you know, these comments of, oh, they should put the ones that they used on Apollo, and it's like, well, I have news for you, because Orion uses the same material, right?
Yep.
And the same for the suits. When the suits were announced, the extravehicular suits and everything, somebody said they should use the ones that they used on Apollo, and it's like, well, when the company that make those, they don't want to do anything with those suits, so yeah, they dropped out of that. But yeah, it's just a funny side note here. We'll see what they do with all of that.
Because now it's, I believe Axiom was the one that's making those suits that were revealed at, what was it, Italian Fashion Week or something?
Yeah. No,
I think it was the IAC.
Yep. It just happened to be Milan, so, you know, fashion. Yeah, with Prada. And yeah, the other contractor was ILC Dover. They, you know, many iterations ago of that company, they were the ones that made the Apollo suits, and also the ones on the shuttle and a bunch of other suits as well. But yeah, and they dropped out of the contract. So they were like, oh, this is too complicated. We're not doing it. So, yeah.
There you go. Mr. Bozo is wondering, we're talking about, obviously, then they'll come back on Orion, but Orion Caton, will HLS ships remain in space, or will they come back down for refurbishment?
Well, we just saw the render there. I don't know if Kevin still has it. I'm kind of throwing a blinder at him, but that ship doesn't have a heat shield, and in order to enter Earth's atmosphere, you need a heat shield because the thermal loads are just, you know, Flight 3 proved this. Bare stainless steel plus re-entry heating, that doesn't work. And that ship was on a suborbital trajectory. That didn't even have an orbital velocity that it was returning in. And as I was just saying, the moon is very far away. So by the time you get to the Earth, your thermal loads are going to be through the roof compared to a low Earth orbit entry. So look, no heat shield. So there is, you know, structurally, there is no way that ship can survive a re-entry with just bare stainless steel from a lunar orbit.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess at that point, rather than refurbishment, either they could do work at Gateway if that becomes a thing still, or just send up another one.
Maybe they'll have a cargo starship that'll bring extra steel to the moon, and then they'll, you know, like Wallace and Gromit style, they'll just like hammer in a steel patch to fix up a ship if it's broken on the moon or something. I don't know. Maybe we'll see an astronaut with some rivets just drilling into the side of a ship to patch it up to make sure it's all right. I don't know, but you know, if you want a base on the moon, theoretically you'll have some sort of workshop maybe in order to mend things. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but it seems like why have you put an O in front of my name? Oh, dear me, Kevin. Dear me.
Orion, yeah.
Like the capsule. Well, at least we know your heat shield isn't broken, so
yeah,
that's a good start.
I don't want to attempt a re-entry from lunar orbit. I'll just say that now.
Fair enough. Let's see. Tim V with a very interesting thought question here while we're still talking about Artemis and HLS and whatnot. I'm going to pose this to each of you. Alex, I'm thirsty, so I need a drink, so I'm going to ask you first, then Ryan. Is SpaceX the most critical part of the Artemis program, or do you think there are other parts that are more critical on the schedule?
Oh dear, that's a long debate. What's the bell for?
Flight mode.
You know, the thing is, the more that we are learning about all of the challenges as well to ramp up SLS production in Orion, also with all of the heat shield issues and everything. It's not just the heat shield. There's also a variety of other issues as well that they need to deal with. There's also the suit. There's a ton of things going on. You know, at one point I thought maybe yes, HLS will probably be the long pole because it was not because of SpaceX being slow or anything. Quite the contrary, they're fast compared to other companies, right? But it was at least one of the last contracts given out. The suit arguably was the last one, but it was a lot deeper in development. To be fair, like it didn't have as much work left to get to the final steps of development, right? Starship, when it was given the contract, that was May 2021, if I remember correctly, and everybody in chat, correct me if I'm wrong, May 5th, 2021 was when SN15 flew. Just to put it in context, so yeah, they didn't even have a launch mount built by then for orbital flights. So right now, as things stand, there's a good chance that it's going to be neck and neck, essentially, with the other parts of the program. We'll see. We'll see what happens. The future is very uncertain sometimes, and you never know.
Yeah.
Ryan, what do you think?
I'll say that everyone is as equally important as each other. In order for the current architecture to hold on the current schedule, each piece is equally as important. However, we do have 2 lunar lander manufacturers contracted: SpaceX with Starship and Blue Origin with Blue Moon. So, theoretically, you might be able to say that Starship is less important to Artemis because there is another lunar lander manufacturer and another launch provider in Blue Origin. However, that's for like Artemis 5 or 6, so that's more missions down the line, that's more years down the line. Artemis 3 and 4 is meant to use Starship, so Starship isn't ready. They can't just, throw Blue Origin's lander in and say everything's fine, because it won't be ready, because they're not contracted for that mission, they're contracted for later missions. So, through that perspective, maybe they're equally important. But, if any single point of this, if they don't have a launch vehicle to launch the crew, if they don't have Orion to get the crew to the moon and back Earth safely, if they don't have a lunar lander, if they don't have EVA spacesuits, how are they meant to send people to the moon, or land on the moon, or do an EVA on the moon, do a moonwalk? You can't do this without you need all of this hardware, all of this infrastructure to do all of it. If you remove one piece of the puzzle's incomplete and you can't do the mission.
I once heard a joke about, we want to get boots to the moon. And it's like, how are we going to do that? We don't have a lander. Just throw the boots out to the moon. Just get them there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and of course, the Blue Origin lander, that one, it's not just that it's being contracted for a later mission. It's that even the development of that lander is eyeing, something like 2029, 2030 for a first flight. And, well, they will have a demonstration flight maybe 1 or 2 years before that. But, they need to work towards that goal. And they're working right now towards 2029, 2030, excuse me. So, of course, it'll take a while. If Starship is not ready by then we have a much bigger problem here at hand. Some people are mentioning, and they are totally correctly, Philip Sloss, SLS rockstar expert, and as I call him, he's a writer here at NSF. He makes these amazing videos with a lot of more detail on the steps of the program and everything, and definitely check that out, because I think they are really good. Giving insights into what steps and what issues are happening in the Artemis program, like what's the status of Orion and SLS. Right now, we're still waiting for Orion, that heat shield issue. It seems like they have a solution for that, but they have not talked about what's the root cause, what is the solution, what is the plan at hand. We're waiting on that. Maybe that'll come with a change of administration in the next couple of months. We have no idea, right? He goes into all of that and more, so definitely check that out. Someone said if you like Alex's long answers, he has even longer answers about Artemis, and that is true.
Very in depth, yes. And by the way, Jake has also popped in to say hi. So everyone say hi, Jake. The most famous cat, it seems like, at NSF. More popular than me, that's for sure. It's Jake. Oh, yeah, and Sawyer's there, too.
Wiggling the tail and everything. So cute.
Here's an interesting one from Ryan Hamstra with the super chat on this one also. In the 60s, we cut corners, in other words, single launch missions that got us to the moon faster, but that meant we didn't stay. Ryan, do you think this time we actually stay?
The entire point of the Artemis program is to go to the moon and stay. So if they don't, then the program has failed. And, you know, the reason NASA is using the private sector in order to make the spacesuits, make the lunar landers, and even with the commercial lunar payload services contract that they're doing for the smaller landers, for the smaller payloads, the entire point of doing this is not only to reduce the cost for NASA to get to the moon, but also to create its own economy, and an economy that will need the moon and will thrive off the moon and further out in the future. So, you know, the idea of the way the Artemis program is being constructed is to try and make it so that we will naturally stay at the moon, because private industry will need to stay at the moon to make money, and the private industry will want to make more money, and by staying at the moon they will make more money. So that's where Artemis and Apollo differ. And, you know, I at this point, seeing how far so many different companies are along, I would be very surprised if the Artemis program doesn't succeed in some of its goals. If we don't stay, the Artemis program has failed, and I really hope that isn't the case.
I mean, I could definitely see a world where we don't get Gateway. I could see something where, you know, it's not so much the orbital plan, but we do need a way to be able to eventually stay on the moon. And yeah, like you talked about, there is the Starship lander for Artemis 3 and 4, and then beyond that you get the additional lander that comes into play, which then you start hopefully getting into a world like you have with cargo missions currently to the ISS, where Cygnus flies, then Dragon flies, and eventually something like a Dragon and Starliner, but that's a whole nother story. But
Is that your cat
I think that's
purring?
a perfect way to put it.
What
Yes,
I'm
that is
hearing?
Jake purring.
Ah, so cute.
I
Anyways.
mean, my mic is right here, and Jake is right here. So, yeah.
But you know what's also right here? Mr. 13.
Telstar86, by the way, says hi, Jake. Jasper saying, found and ordered the patch. Let's go Flight 6, and also let's go Glenny. Oh, you are going to love something that Jack did just to annoy all of us. He may have gotten creative with a shirt. I'll just say that.
I am not looking forward to it.
Why do I have a feeling that he's going to be wearing it on Flame Trench on Friday? I mean, we'll have to tune in and find out to see what it is.
Yeah.
Benjamin, thank you for the support. And then Angry American with a good question. When do you think we will have a Starship version constructed in Leo? Is that a thing potentially, Alex?
That will be a very fine way of getting around the problem of, you know, if you build a bigger rocket, you need a lot more engines, and you need, you know, those more engines, you need a lot more power, right? Maybe no more engines in number, but more power at the very least. And the problem is, you start getting to a point where there's so much power that how are you even going to build your launch pad around that, right? And where are you going to build that launch pad? Because who is going to be, you know, able to live nearby such a powerful rocket? Like I've done the math. You know, Elon suggested like a ship of double the diameter of the current one, and you know, something like that will be humongous, because even if it keeps the length and it just doubles the diameter, it will be a lot more thrust that it will need. It will be a lot more noise and a lot more impact to a lot of people, not and even to the launch infrastructure. Like, imagine the deluge system that you will need for such a vehicle, right? Definitely you cannot fire that against concrete as they wanted to do for Flight 1, right? So it will be a very nice way to get around all of that. You just use a bunch more launches of smaller rockets, and you build a ship in low Earth orbit already that you can, launch refueling flights as well to fill it up and everything, and go off whatever you want.
There we go. And also, someone named Jack Byer is in chat just saying Glenny.
No. Stop it.
Hoppy.
Stop it. Yeah, Hoppy.
Yes.
Hoppy.
Hoppy. You know what? We should probably just end this before we turn into a whole Glenny debate here. We will, of course, keep an eye out on the Booster 13 roll, and obviously once that rolls, we will go live. So if you're not already, hit subscribe. It's free, totally free. And then if you hit that bell, it'll notify you when we do go live with the roll and for all of our other awesome stuff going on here. I, of course, need to thank everyone who's with me here today. Thank you very much, Alex, for your awesomely eloquent answers.
I'll try to do my best, and hopefully we see you guys in the next one. You don't need that. Okay, now I'm gonna run out the clock. There you go. So 24 seconds I have to go. Just check out all of the amazing things that we do here at SF. Like and subscribe, all the things that people say. And I don't know, check the socials. I'm doing the work that Sawyer should do, just because I'm just running out the clock just to mess with Kevin. I can even dance a little bit to just pass the clock. And 2, 1, there you go.
Oh my gosh. Time is up. Yeah. Thank you as well for joining, Ryan.
You're very welcome, Sawyer. And we just gone. Did I get it right? Yes, I got it right. Under 120 hours to go, which is 5 days, Alex. Not 6, 5 days. So we're getting close.
It's 5 days.
Very close, yes. By the way, you also pointed out something important there, Alex. Don't forget, we also have the socials, all of our socials, which Jake is running right now to go follow them on Facebook, on Instagram, all to check that out. So run over to the socials and check those out if you're not already. A huge thank you to Gage, who's been helping with some of the cameras behind the scenes, and to everyone on the SBL side. Starbase Live is... it's a great 24/7 resource. It takes a lot of people behind the scenes to keep those cameras running, to position them, to point them, and to bring you the views. So I want to make sure we give them an important shout out as well. And I guess we'll thank Kevin Michael Reed for running and operating the show. I guess we can thank you, Kevin. Really is appreciated, though. And a reminder, those of you that keep asking about Flight 6, some people have found the link already. But if you haven't, don't worry, the daily video coming out will have a link to be able to pre-order Flight 6 patch, but it's not going to be blatantly obvious. It's not going to be a giant text on the screen saying, here's how to order. You're going to have to listen and watch very, very carefully, so keep an eye out for it. And if you're already a member, well, you may not have to work as hard, because we will definitely give you a bit of a link to it coming up tonight. So pre-order for patch 6 very, very soon. I'm Sawyer Rodenstein. I have been your host for this countdown to launch. I know, it's sad, it's over, but don't worry, we have another one coming up. Same bat time, same bat channel, 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And we hope we will see you for that one. And again, we'll go live once again after we have Booster 13 rolling. Until then, have a great one, everybody.
And here we go.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
god! Oh my god!
Décollage.
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
Nothing will be igniting flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. Sure. We don't need any more of these.